Welcome to the very first episode of Future Consideration, SB Nation's weekly NFL draft show. Here's how it works. Dan Rubenstein watches a lot of college football.
Matt Ufford covers the NFL all year long.
True. We're going to mesh our knowledge to try to make sense of the NFL draft.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Let's start off with this week's mock drafts drama. At the top, Houston Texans trading down, Cleveland Browns trading up, Johnny Manziel. Your thoughts?
It's important to keep in mind that this is a little bit of a thought experiment.
Yes.
This isn't necessarily saying that this will happen, because otherwise it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
Johnny Manziel is an excellent quarterback. I think he's going to be a successful pro.
Sure.
But is he so much better? Is he so much better than Blake Bortles and Teddy Bridgewater that he's also worth an additional first-round pick to trade up to get him?
Maybe, maybe not. If you like your quarterback, if you found your guy, you do whatever it takes to get him. We've seen that these past few years. It works on different levels. Number 2, we have Bortles, 2 overall to St. Louis.
Bortles. It's a ballsy pick right there, because Sam Bradford, I hate Sam Bradford's contract. I don't think he's the quarterback that the Rams need.
Right.
I love them. They've got that number 2 pick. I don't like them trading down. I do like them taking a quarterback there while there's one available.
Yeah, and Teddy Bridgewater at 3. I mean,
Makes
easy
sense.
pick, no problem there.
Most complete quarterback of the draft, probably.
Absolutely. Number 4.
I don't know about why a team that has J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless as their edge rushers, an incredible value.
And it's Jadeveon Clowney.
But when you've already got a really pretty good defense, I mean,
it wasn't the problem.
You're not going to regret Jadeveon Clowney being on your team, but I think that they have better needs. I would rather see them trade down at that spot than to try to, I don't know, fix a hole that they don't have.
Sure, and number 5, you have Sammy Watkins, Oakland Raiders. If you're a bad team, you need all sorts of help. If you're a bad team that drafts a receiver high, you're just a bad team as a receiver.
That's going to stay a question mark until the Raiders start to spend some of their $61 million. $61 million in cap space.
Yeah.
So, again, we'll see what they do in free agency. What about you, Mike Evans at 8?
Yeah. I like Mike Evans a lot in this spot. The Jets, they're really not that short of a playoff spot. They played well every other week last year, excuse me. Mike Evans fills a need. They need a receiver, plain and simple. So if they're enamored with him jumping up, that's what they got to do.
Deep draft, lots of wide receivers. I don't like them trading up. What about you? Had thoughts on Bradley Roby at 12?
Yeah, somebody that got burnt a lot this year in college. Came in with a lot of hype. One of the best pure corners in this draft. Very physical, can come up and play the run. But with the Giants, there's so many issues along both lines that I think need to be addressed before any of this. I'd like to see them go with really a lot of talent on the offensive or defensive lines.
15, Clinton-Dix to the Steelers. I'm almost angry it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Steelers are taking a safety.
Troy Polamalu getting older, of course, and it's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
Jumping down towards the bottom of the first round.
Yes.
Kelvin Benjamin, 28 to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Huge sense. The Carolina Panthers' leading receiver in 2013 was Greg Olsen with barely 800 yards.
Yep.
Steve Smith, their number 1 receiver, didn't have a game in the regular season where he broke 70 yards. His best game was 74 yards.
So they need a receiver, and Kelvin Benjamin, a little bit stiff, but he's a big receiver, huge target for Jameis Winston at Florida State. The value is great right there. I don't think he's a top 20 pick, but right around there, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
And finally, your Seahawks, Aaron Donald at 32.
If this actually comes to play, I would be thrilled. It makes sense for the Seahawks. They've got a couple defensive tackles that gave them great time. On moving towards free agency, we'll see if they be able to sign. But Aaron Donald, he's undersized at a mere 285 pounds.
Right.
Drawing comparisons to Geno Atkins.
Very similar frame.
And Pete Carroll and John Schneider love to do 2 things. Restock their defensive line on the regular.
And have energy!
And they like to take guys who aren't the right size for the position.
Right. Yeah, that don't necessarily fit traditional molds, but just good players.
Exactly.
You don't need he must be 6'3". Fair enough. Let's take a deeper dive at the offensive line class in the 2014 NFL Draft. Huge position of need for pretty much everyone. You have a good offensive line, you do them pretty well.
Building block for the entire offense.
Yeah, it's a nice draft for offensive linemen. I think it starts with Jake Matthews just because he's so NFL ready in terms of talent coming from Texas A&M. We see Luke Jokelby immensely prepared for the draft last year. This year, I like Jake Matthews a lot, can play either side. Just fills an immediate void for pretty much 2/3 of the NFL.
Yeah, you were talking about great technique, good use of his hands. Number 2, Greg Robinson.
Yes.
Not the defensive coordinator at Texas.
No, thank goodness. Thank goodness we're not drafting him high. No, he is a mauler. He is a moving wall. He will immediately come at you from the right or left side. He's that talented because he is good in pass protection, because he is a monster and has quick feet, which is important. He is a prototypical NFL tackle. He will move large men.
Xavier Su'a-Filo at 3.
Yes.
Guards don't ordinarily rate as highly as tackles. You don't see him go in the first round too often. Last year with 2 in the top 10, Chance Warmack, Jonathan Cooper.
Yeah.
Very unusual. Is he first round ready?
Yeah, I think so, just because he's so versatile at guard. He has tackle experience and guard experience, so he can step in case of an injury or if a tackle is awful, like we've seen. And Su'a-Filo can move. He can actually get to the second level really nice. It's a nice year for guards. It's Su'a-Filo, Yankee, and Martin, and they're sort of 1A, 1B, and 1C.
All right.
So there's that.
4.
Yes.
Cyrus Kouandjio, obviously Alabama offensive lineman.
Tons of vowels, by the way.
Tend to do pretty well moving on to the NFL.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, some have struggled a little bit, but the talent is ridiculous there. His frame, long arms, he moves people, not in the way that Greg Robinson does, but he is somebody that can immediately step in, especially on the right side. He's not great getting to the second level, as some of these other guys are, but prototypical strength, not an issue at all.
And then Taylor Lewan, Big Ten.
Angry. He is a very angry Big Ten man.
Unbecoming of a Michigan man.
Unbecoming. He's very tall, which actually belies his talent because he can get to the second level, plays with a nasty streak, and I don't know if he can play on the right side, which is sort of an issue. You want somebody versatile enough, you're going to take him in the first round, but good enough that he can come in and immediately move people.
So there you go, top 5 offensive linemen in the NFL draft.
Yep.
Thank you, Dan.
There are 5 teams that could be really happy.
Yeah.
I wish I were big.
Me too. Every week on Future Consideration, we're going to go through one NFL division and go through their team's needs. What are they going to be looking for in the draft? Let's start things off with the NFC West, home of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, best division in football.
That's true.
Let's kick things off with the St. Louis Rams, last place in the division.
Yeah.
With a number 2 pick overall. This is a... They've got Kellen Clemens leaving in free agency, most likely. They could be without him.
Yeah.
This is a team kind of middle-of-the-road defense.
Yeah.
And they're really the...
Up and down, though, I would say. There's a lot of talent at certain places.
Hugely talented defensive line, great pass rush, but they have very, very little cap space because of 3 huge contracts.
Yep.
Sam Bradford, Chris Long, James Laurinaitis.
Yeah.
So it's all going to come down to where do they have holes.
And where can they fill in value in this draft with youth that's not expensive.
And I think that you're going to look for the secondary.
Yeah.
Janoris Jenkins has been great, but they need some help with safety, and you could also look at offensive line too.
Absolutely.
For how good you're going to want to put up some maulers up front to deal with Seattle's defensive line, San Francisco's defensive line.
Arizona's defensive line.
Sure. And Zach Stacy has a lot of talent and a big guy. You want to put some big boys up in front of him.
And they invest, of course, in a couple of really good, potentially wide receivers last year in the draft. All right, moving right along. Arizona, a team about this far away from making the playoffs this season. So what are those missing pieces to you? It feels like receiver, even as good as Larry Fitzgerald is, he's not getting any younger. The offensive skill, at least on the outside, still a question. And for them as well, offensive line. Everybody needs to get better up front. Is it any different for Arizona?
Yeah, the hugest hold they have, they lost Jonathan Cooper, their seventh overall pick in the 2013 draft, to a broken leg in the preseason.
Right.
And yet, but the thing is, they don't have enough depth. They still need more offensive line help. They gave up 41 sacks last year, 3.6 yards per rush.
And of those 41, 58 of those were Levi Brown.
They could also use a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. If somebody like Derek Carr, David Fales,
Carson Palmer's 34 years old. Who's backing him up? Ryan Lindley and Drew Stanton.
Yeah.
Yes. They've got holes.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Niners, a team really hard to nitpick when they were about this far away from the Super Bowl, but free agency, attrition, injuries, there's always change in the NFL. What do they need?
I think the thing that sticks out to me is their secondary. It's already not the best. Maybe the best front 7 in all of football.
Sure.
Secondary, not their strong suit. And also, Dante Whitner's a free agent. Terrell Brown's a free agent.
Yep.
Carlos Rogers is 33 years old.
Not a Benjamin Button and getting younger.
And a likely cap hit. So I think it makes sense for them to get a strong safety to pair with Eric Reed or a top-level cornerback.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side of the ball, they're playing for the Seahawks. If there's anything that let them down against the Seahawks, it's playmakers all over the place on offense. So if they can nab somebody at the end of the first round, deep receiver draft, second, third round, that's a win for the Niners.
It seems they've got Anquan Bolden is likely to be resigned. Michael Crabtree, big possession type receiver. I'd like to see them, if they go with a wide receiver, to get themselves a burner. Someone like T.Y. Hilton, who had a great game against the Seahawks in 2013.
And speaking of which, your Super Bowl champions Seattle Seahawks. A team that has actually a lot of questions.
Yeah, huge amount of questions as they try to sign their young, talented, cheap players to
So lucky.
So a lot's going to depend on who they extend.
Yeah.
But for me, they've got two big holes. One is offensive guard, where they had struggles all year long.
Yep.
And the other side is the defensive line, where you've got Michael Bennett, Tony McDaniel, Clinton McDonald, all are free agents, and then Chris Clemens, Red Bryant, and Brandon Mebane are all kind of big numbers for the cap.
Yep.
So they've got some young talent on the defensive line. Jesse Williams was a 5th rounder last year and didn't play at all. Alabama standout. He could do very well this coming year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they went defensive tackle and let some of Tony McDaniel or Clinton McDonald go.
Yeah, and that's not somebody they have to take early on in the draft too. There's some value at the defensive tackle position. All right, there it is. We've got this week's Mocking the Draft mock draft. We've got offensive line rankings.
And NFC West team needs.
That, my friends, is the NFL guy.
He knows college football.
Sometimes. This is Future Consideration. See you next week.